Hey, welcome back to the channel. Do you have a Game Boy SP that you really enjoy playing, but you feel that the frontlit screen is a little washed out by today's standards? And of course, buying a 101 version with the backlit screen is pretty expensive, or you get a beater. Well, there's a lot of options out there, and most of them are new IPS screens. So in today's video, we're going to look at installing an IPS screen and one of the new prestige shells from Handheld Legend. And if you stick around, we'll show you how to get it done. Okay, on the bench today, we have a Game Boy Advanced SP, which is our clamshell version. This one came to me today because the backlight wasn't working and the shell's in kind of rough shape. Just looking over this is not an original shell. You can see the color differences, and most of the time the OE shells, there's not even a serial number on it. Most of the time the OE shells aren't painted, and this one's clearly red plastic with paint on it. So I told the owner that the best thing to do, instead of trying to clean this up and trying to find pads and whatnot, is just go ahead and put a new shell on it. And the shell we've got today obviously is an aftermarket, and this one came from our friends at Handheld Legend. And since the screen was messed up, and I told him he could still play it without the light, but he wanted the light to work, and I told him the best and easiest method to make that happen is to go ahead and do a IPS screen. So I figured we might as well put this one on video, since I don't think we've done a SP screen and shell. So basically, to get this started, we just got to get it apart. Once you're into the bottom, there's only a few more Phillips screws holding it in. And once we're here, the bail will slide down, and this ribbon will come out. All right, so for the most part, this is all we need. We're going to need this. Probably need the speaker, because the new shell came with buttons and probably new membranes. So we're going to set that aside for a moment, and we need to take the ribbon cover off, and then we can get the screen out of the way, and then we can get our hinges. We'll put our screen aside, and we'll save that for the customer. Even though the backlight doesn't work on it, the screen itself does turn on. And here's our speaker we're going to need to save. And we're going to need the hinges. So I'm just going to go ahead and get these membranes and buttons out of the way. There we go. All right, these hinges do take a little bit of force, but more or less, once the cover's off, all you gotta do is push them out. Unless if they're in the wrong way. There we go. Need something to stand it up on so we have some room. Use our coaster. That'll give us a little bit of room to push on and have it come out. There we go. Well, that one went flying, so I'm going to go have to find it, I guess. All right. I'll be right back when I find the hinge. Okay, we found both hinges. The one obviously was just sitting here on the mat. The other one must have bounced and it was sitting down in here with, some leftovers and some of my tools. So I guess that's a point to be noted, is that make sure you know which way they jumped. So anyway, all right. From this point, we have what we need. We have our board, we have our new shell, we have our new hardware, and I'm just gonna go ahead and open this up. I'm gonna move the old hardware aside into the lid of the old shell. We may have to reuse some of it. Some of the shells that I've gotten over the years, you do, but some you don't. So it looks like we have our cover, our hinge covers, and the new Nintendo sticker for the shell right there. And they sealed up this bottom bit. So let's go ahead and open that and see what we got. All right, so that's trash because we cut it. Looks like we have all the little rubber stops, the bump, the covers for inside the shell. Now this one's nice. It does have the little square nut that goes in behind the battery door. Sometimes you gotta steal it from your old shell. And for the most part, it looks like OE style hardware. We have tri-wings, we have some Phillips, and some are gold and some are silver. So, okay, so there we have it. So I guess the next thing we should do is get into our screen. And of course, Handheld Legend always wants you to test the screens. But honestly, I have not gotten a bad screen from them. Okay, this particular one already has the glass shield on it. Here's our converter board, a little bit of double-sided tape and a foam backer, and we will have to solder one wire on this one. So let's just go ahead and get the insulating tape, like all of their screens, onto the back. Like that. And our converter board's going to go right about here. We're going to put the double-sided tape down. There's our double side. You need to be careful with these FPC connectors. They can be damaged, but you have to press pretty hard to damage them. In this particular one, we're just going to go ahead and fold it over since this ribbon needs some room too. Take your time, make sure it's lined up. You're not crooked or sideways. And it should go right in with minimal pressure. And now that that's on, we'll go ahead and expose our double-sided tape. And we'll stick this where that FPC connector wants to set naturally. Looks like it's just a little bit off the edge of this screen, but I don't think that's a problem. All right, and we can actually test this. So let's see, if that's that way, it'd be this way inside. There we go. Do not force bails in any of these. Now this bail you don't have to worry about damaging because it's a slide under that pushes it into the pins, but you can damage the ribbon. So if something doesn't seem like it's going the way it should, go ahead, stop, make sure things are lined up, put it back together. All right, and we need a battery. And I believe there was a charge in this battery. We want to make sure the battery is the right way. Little bit of pressure on the contacts and turn it on. All right, great. Our screen's working just fine. So we turn that off, set our battery aside, and disconnect it from our board. If you have any problems at that stage, go ahead, stop, double check that the FPC connector is properly seated into the socket, and make sure that the ribbon here is correct. I'm assuming that you're starting with one that there's a good main board in it. So from here, we can set our main board aside, and let's move into the shell. Now, this should be an IPS ready shell with this edge trimmed out. Yeah, I believe it looks like it's already trimmed. In the OE shell, it's a little thicker. There's a few bumps. So let's see what this one looks like. Looks like there's just enough clearance on this side for that converter board. Yeah. Yep, it just fits. So when you put it on, maybe just tip it to one side. But everything looks good there. So we're going to go ahead and lift it out. We're going to peel our film. Go ahead and set it in our shell. Now, the nice thing about the SP is that the lens comes in from the back and it kind of keys itself into place. So it doesn't have anywhere to go. I'm just going to lay the film in there. This is going to curl into this channel. Like that. And then we can put our screws in. So let's find the right ones. We need 5 that are fairly short. Those gold ones are going to be for the main board. All right, don't accidentally, you can see here, there's a length difference between this one and this one. So don't accidentally put the long one through because it will punch little white, spots in from behind. And these are all tri-wing. So make sure you use the right screwdriver. It's nice to see that these aftermarket companies are putting proper OE type hardware in to their kits these days. And honestly, if you're doing one of these IPS screens and your shell's worn at all, these IPS shells aren't horribly expensive from Handheld Legend, and it really saves time on the install. Everything just lines up the way it should, and everything fits. I think the only Prestige shell I've had to do anything with was the Game Gear shell, where we had to cut out the top screw post. But, you know, in the back of the game gear, there's already 6 other screws to hold it closed, so it wasn't that big of a deal. All right, before we're not going to put the little rubber covers in yet, because I want to get this all buttoned up and make sure everything is working together, and we can put the cleanup parts on afterwards. All right, so there's our screen, and we can set that aside. So let's look at our main board. Okay, so they put a nice little piece of cardboard in there to hold everything in place, and you can see the membranes are already in there. We just needed our speaker. That's just going to sit in like that. All right. So you're going to continue this curl and just feed it through the little notch. From my angle, it's not the easiest thing to do, but there we go. And you can see it's kind of cut out. So you're going to tip it a little bit, slide this edge in, and then straighten her out. Oops. All right, we're going to put that cardboard back in. I don't feel like chasing buttons around everywhere. All right, so that should hold everything in place. So we can get our hinges in here. And there should be these little guys here, which are the end covers for the hinges. Assuming these hinges aren't too messed up, they should slide on. There is a small keyway. It's probably not the easiest to see, but there's the notch here. And there's the notch there. So it's going to slide on that direction. And the notch on the side of the hinge is going to come, the notch comes this way. Might be easier doing it open. Let's try that. All right, there's that side. And there's that side. All right. Just takes a little bit of coursing. The hinges should be tight because you want it to, you know, snap into place. All right, so now we get to look at the one wire that needs soldered. So if we open it, it will give us a little bit more length on our ribbon. So I just don't like it not being supported. So let's find something to support it that's not going to scratch it. How about a can of Deox and a paper towel? No, that's too big. Okay. All right. We're just going to have to be careful, I think. All right. This is probably the biggest pain in the butt of the whole thing, is just getting this ribbon back in when it's open. All right. All right. There we go. Like I said, it's not the easiest shot in the world. All right, so from here, the one wire we need to solder is going to be from this pad to U12B, which is that guy right there. And that what this is going to do, you don't have to solder this wire in, but I believe all it will do is turn the backlight on and off. If we solder this wire, then when you use your normal light button, your backlight button, or front light on most of the SPs, it's going to actually change the brightness. So you have several levels of brightness. All right, so, and the kit did come with one piece of wire. Here it is. And since this is going to be on this ribbon, you don't need a lot of heat on your iron. I've got it set for 390 right now. Just make sure things are clean. A little solder on the tip. That'll give us a spot there. That'll give us a spot there. And that's it. That's all the solder you need. And I'm going to go ahead and trim this because I don't think we need this much length. All right, this is not pre-tinned. There's just a little bit of copper in there. So we'll just tin up our copper. And find our test point. Go ahead and solder it on. All right, just got to make sure this is tucked up so it's not going to touch anything. Now we're just going to leave it like that. All right, so now we can get rid of this cardboard once and for all. Make sure all your buttons and pads are where they should be, and set our main board down. This is our hinge cover. There's one screw through the bottom, so we can set that in there. We can carefully just move the board aside and go ahead and get a screw in it. It's going to use a shorter one. There we go. There we go. Now we can put these ones back in. So you can see that people that do this every once in a while still mess up. As long as you catch it before you put it all together for the customer. And you use the right screwdriver. All right, there we go. Now we've already got our square nut in there and our triggers are already in place. So we can go ahead and button this up. Just make sure your switches are in the right positions so they don't hang up. There we go. Let's see, our door already has a screw in it. All right, there we go. You might have seen me kind of giving a tug on the corners of the cases. I don't like to over tighten the hardware. I don't want to stress the plastic. So I put it in until it feels snug, and then I start checking it to make sure it's actually seated. But you know, that's up to whoever's doing the install. So if things are right, all right, look at that. It's a great looking screen in an SP. Yes, if you can find a 101 SP, they do have a really nice screen, but the standard SP screen is a bit washed out looking because it's a front light. And since we hooked up that wire, we should have brightness control. So each click goes a little brighter and a little brighter and a little brighter. All right, and our last step is to go ahead and put our stickers and our stops on. So let's just do that real quick, and we'll call this one done. All right, there we go. There is the Handheld Legend IPS unbranded screen and a Prestige shell. So, if you liked the video, why don't you give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, because it does help. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and make them down below. Also, I will link the parts in the description, and if you're a new customer to Handheld Legend, there'll be a link for a 10% off coupon in case you want to buy these parts and build this for yourself. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next video.